the dread of you upon all the land that ye shall tread upon, as he hath said unto you. And then it goes on to a curse if they don't. Then it 12 goes about the command concerning the central sanctuary. Basically it's saying, talk about the place to worship, a certain area, their sanctuary where the priest will be at, and they'll do their offerings and all that. And then it goes on about the food and what they can eat and all that again. Then you got a command concerning the false prophets. Basically, if there's a prophet comes up and turns them from following the Lord, then he's a false prophet. If a prophet comes and says something and it don't come to pass, he's a false prophet. If you don't come and and if he's a false prophet, then they're supposed to kill him and stone him. And then it goes about the commands of food again. What they can eat, what they can't. Then you got the tithes. Giving the first fruits and all that, and a tenth or whatever they give to the priests and the Levites and all that. Then you got the Sabbath year. Every 7 years you shall make a release. Basically, every creditor that lendeth shall be released. The land of rest. You won't sow on the 7th year, the Sabbath year, and all that. And basically, if you have a debt, you're debt free. They should do something like that here today. And then also too, when you do reap your harvest, they left food out there for the poor to eat, so no one would go hungry. I mean, the Bible, people was reading and stuff, especially like Leviticus and Numbers and everything, about what they did, and they practiced some of that stuff. It'd be a lot less stuff going on these days. No one lacked. The way God had this set up for them, their laws, no one lacked. No one did nothing, and people had fear to commit crimes. Because if you had, let's say, a man killed somebody, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, they put evil away from Israel. If they had a rebellious son and he wouldn't listen, they took him to the priests. They stoned him and killed him and put him out. And then you got the festivals, the Passover, unleavened bread, and all that. Feast of the Tabernacles. So I'm not getting too deep into some of this stuff, but then you got the law concerning the judges, basically not being a respected person, the rich or poor, and all that. Goes on to sacrificing to the Lord any bullock. It couldn't have blemish and all that, or it'd be an abomination to the Lord. It had to be perfect and pure. Then it talks about the kings. Whenever they do get all situated and have their lands, they'll set a king over themselves. And they have to set someone that's from Israel, their brother, from one of the tribes. And God made sure that he didn't sit upon them, sit on the throne and be over them, but he'd be the same as them, that he wouldn't be lifted up above his brethren, and he turned not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left. And he would remember the law. He'd have the book of the law, and he'd remember it all the days of his life. Then it goes to the Levites and stuff. What they would eat, they'd eat part of the offerings that was sent to the Lord. Then they'd have their little areas, their cities of refuge, stuff like that, because they didn't have an inheritance. They got a 10th portion of each tribe, basically, the certain little cities and all that. And then you got the false diviners. Basically, there should not be among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter pass through the fire. or that uses divinations, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or wizards, and all that. And basically, being passed through the fire is a human sacrifice, sacrificing your children, because they're abomination before the Lord, which drives out from before thee. So the Canaanites and all that was in the land was doing that. They was witches, wizards, pagans, and all that, and they human sacrifice and everything. So, and using spirits, which is not of the Lord. So there's a reason why He chose Israel to have that land, which, you know, it's kind of both ways, win lose, especially for the Canaanites. Then it goes on to the prophets and stuff. If a prophet speaks presumptuously, which the Lord didn't command him, that prophet shall die. When he speaks in the name of the Lord and the thing follows not, then don't be afraid of him. But if it's he does say something and it comes to pass, then, you know, fear him and obey the prophet, especially if he's leading you to the Lord. It gets deeper into the cities of refuge. Basically, you know, where the avenger, if the slayer kills somebody and goes to the cities of refuge, the avengers can't kill him until it's time for his judgment, and they kill him or stone him or whatever. It goes on witnesses of basically if somebody sees somebody doing something, they got to go to the priest and the judges, and they'll make an equation and, you know, do the verdict and all that. And then they go to warfare in chapter 20. It's telling them not to let their hearts be faint nor tremble, for the Lord goes with them to fight against your enemies to save you. And they basically do a little speech, you know, if you're scared, don't go, because we don't want you to weaken your brethren's heart and make their hearts faint. You know, they want them to go ready, because the ones that have faith in God, and He'll deliver them. If they go against the people there in Canaan, they don't want nothing left alive. They want them all killed. But if it's somewhere else, like a foreign country that's out of that land that they're not going to possess, then, you know, if they don't have peace, then take them out. Then you got manslaughter, where it deals with that in chapter 21. You know, it's basically eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of deal. Then you got marriage and family life. But if a man marries a woman, or sees a woman from the captives, and he wants her, and then he'll take her, shave her head, par her nails, she'll be in his house for a month, or bewail her father and her mother, and then after that he'll go into her. She'll be his wife. If he don't want her, then he'll let her go free. She'll just go free. And it goes on, if a man has two wives and he hates one and loves the other one, then the one he hates has his first son, then that son's still obligated to the firstborn, even though he hates his mother. Then it goes on, if a son's rebellious, you know, they'll stone him and kill him. And if a man commits a sin worthy of death, he'll be hung from a tree and then buried. And this goes on to more moral stuff, and it says a woman should not wear that which pertains to a man. A man can't put on a woman's garments. I'm not sure what they was wearing back then to determine that, but you've got women pants, you got men pants, you got women's shirts, you got men's shirts, t-shirts, pants, socks, shoes. If there's a way to really break that down, show me. And this, where it gets me too, you can't wear a garment that's made of two different fabrics. It has to be the same fabric. You can't have cotton on one side and silk on another part and all that. It has to be one simple thing. And that gets more into the laws and stuff of certain, I guess, traditions that they were supposed to abide by. Then it goes about who can go into the congregation. It says the Ammonite and the Moabite can't enter. into the congregation until their 10th generation, because they didn't meet them with bread and water when they came forth from Egypt. A man who is a bastard should not enter the congregation. A man who has his private member cut off can't enter into the congregation. An Egyptian can't until the 3rd generation. And it goes on more about that, and not oppressing a stranger and all this, and servants. There should be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor sodomite of the sons of Israel. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog in the house of the Lord thy God for any vow. The abomination. Sodomite is a male prostitute. Basically, homosexuals. I mean, a male prostitute, they either go with dudes or women, unless it's a male prostitute going with women, but either way. So basically, people with sin can't go in there, and then certain people can't ever go in there, and they can't, I guess, certain things there's no atonement for. I mean, if you got a private member cut off and you have blemishes, you're not allowed to go in there until you're clean. But like a leper, if someone has leprosy, they can't go into the congregation because they're unclean. They can't go to the sanctuary. Then you got the protection for the weak, which is basically somebody poor and you can't use usury on them and stuff, and take advantage of people, and just if they can't pay it, it'll be a sin against people who use usury on somebody to take advantage of them. Then it goes on about marriage life again. If the woman don't find favor in her husband's eyes, he can write her up a bill of divorcement and divorce her. She can go away from him, get married again, and then if the guy didn't like her and he divorced her, then she can't go back to her previous husband again, because she's defiled, I guess, from being with another man. But then if a man dies and he's married, then his brother's supposed to take his dead brother's wife and basically continue their seed through her or through him. And then if he don't, then he'll have to go to the priest and all that. She'll have to go. Then she'll unloosen his shoe latchet and spit in his face for not taking his obligation of his dead brother. Some wild stuff in this book. You need to read it. Then like I said, first controversy, they'll go to the priest and all that. And you got the first fruits, where you bring the first fruits to the priest in the tabernacle. And rejoice in the Lord and everything, and dedicate everything to Him. I mean, whatever we got, dedicate it to Him and His work. But then you look around today, which is His work. I mean, you got all these different churches and different religions, different groups that claim His name, but yet they're twisted. I mean, how do you dedicate it to His work? Unless you just take yourself and dedicate yourself to getting closer to Him, that He may open your eyes and use you for His work. I mean, I guess that's what I'm doing. Then you got more about the ceremonies. Basically tell them when they come over there, Jordan, they'll, build an altar to the Lord and sacrifice to Him. And it talks about they split up the tribes, and then they stood on one mountain and another mountain. The priest stood up there and told them, you be blessed if you do this, or you be cursed if you do that. So now you've got the promise of blessings and the promises of curses. 28, you got the promise of blessings, which is God will bless your land. He'll bless you. He'll make you prosper if you just turn to Him and keep His covenant and seek after Him. But if you don't listen to His words and obey the voice of the Lord, He'll curse them, and the curses will overtake them. They'll be cursed in their field. The land will be barren. People will be vexing them. They'll be in bondage. They'll lose their land. The Lord will smite them with consumption, with a fever, inflammation, burning, with a sword, mildew. They'll flee when no one's even after them. I mean, a lot of things. Then you think about it, we got a lot of diseases going on, a lot of sickness. I mean, I'm sick. I mean, I got a cold or some kind of crazy stuff. But, you know, if people was wholly following the Lord, you don't think sickness would flee from them? Curses would flee from them? And it goes on down to their curses. He'll bring nations against them from afar. From the end of the earth, as swift as an eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance. They won't show favor to the old or to the young. They'll eat the fruit of their cattle. You think about that. They're going to bring nations from afar. Now, who ruled through history in that time? You had Babylon. You had Persia, Greece, Rome. From afar. And you'll look at it and you'll see in their history and in the prophecies of the books of the prophets. And you look at history, period. You can look at it. Israel ain't had a pretty history. He goes on deeper about the curses and stuff. And if you look at this, chapter 28, you'll see their history and how it's been. And 29 goes on about talking about them in the wilderness again, and smoting the king of Bashan, taking their land for inheritance for the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, basically keeping the words of the covenant again, and keeping the words of the Lord. So that's still going on about. And then God telling them, if any of thine be driven into the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do to thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God within all thine heart. And that's going to happen. That hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen. Then Moses went and spake all the words to him. He's 120 years old. He can't go out and come in. The Lord taught him he can't go over Jordan. And he's going to sit, and he's basically reassuring them, telling them God's going to do to them what he's done to the other kings. And Joshua is going to be strong, and he called Joshua and told him to be strong and of good courage, and just lifted him up and set him in charge. And then they would get to the place they're going to read the law before all Israel in their hearing, and gather the people together, everybody, that they may hear the words and observe them and do them of the Lord. The Lord said unto Moses, the days approach that you should die. Call Joshua and present yourself in the tabernacle of the congregation, that I may give him charge. And Moses basically will gather the elders together and the priests, and gave Joshua the son of Nun charge, told him to be strong and good courage. And Moses laid his hands on him and blessed him, and Moses' spirit went into him, where he would have wisdom. Chapter 32 is the Song of Moses. I think everybody should read that. It lifts up the Lord and says what he's done for them, because he is our rock. He is powerful. He is great. He delivers and He provides. 33 is still